Success leaves clues. Excellence isn't mysterious. The path to mastery has been walked before, and those footprints are there for us to follow. What I'm going to share with you today isn't theory or philosophy. These are principles that have been proven throughout human history. Let me ask you something. Have you ever watched someone who's truly exceptional at what they do? Maybe it's a musician, an athlete, a business leader, or even a parent. When you watch true mastery in action, there's something almost magical about it, isn't there? They make the difficult look easy. The complex look simple. But what you're seeing isn't magic. What you're seeing is the result of thousands of small decisions made consistently over time. The first principle I want to share with you is this: you must decide what you want. Sounds simple, doesn't it? But it's amazing how many people never truly decide. They have wishes, hopes, maybes, but they never make that firm, unshakable decision. This is what I want, and I'm going to have it. You see, until you decide, the universe doesn't know what to give you. Until you decide, your own potential lies dormant. The moment you truly decide is the moment the journey to becoming the best begins. And I'm not talking about a casual decision. I'm talking about the kind of decision where you cut off all other possibilities. The kind of decision where retreat is no longer an option. I remember talking with a gentleman some years ago. He told me, "Jim, I'm thinking about starting a business." And I said to him, "Well, that's the problem right there." He looked puzzled. I said, "You're still thinking about it. You haven't decided. There's a world of difference between thinking about something and deciding to do it." The second principle is this: you must pay the price. Everything has a price, and the price must be paid in full, in advance. Now, what's the price for becoming the best at something? It's different for each endeavor, but it always includes the same currencies: time, effort, persistence, and sometimes even social misunderstanding. Most people aren't willing to pay that price. They want the rewards without the sacrifice. They want the harvest without the planting. But life doesn't work that way. The law of sowing and reaping is always in effect. What you plant now, you harvest later. What you don't plant now, you won't harvest later. I've always been fascinated by bamboo farmers. Do you know the story of the Chinese bamboo tree? You plant it, and for 5 years nothing happens. Nothing visible anyway. You water it and cultivate it, and all you see is a tiny shoot coming out of the ground. For 5 years. Can you imagine the patience required? Most people would give up. They'd say, "This isn't working." But the bamboo farmer knows something. He knows that underground an elaborate root system is being established. And then in the 5th year, something amazing happens. The bamboo tree grows 90 feet in 6 weeks. Now the question is, did the bamboo tree grow 90 feet in 6 weeks, or did it grow 90 feet in 5 years? The answer is obvious when you understand the principle of preparation and patience. The same applies to becoming the best at anything. There's always a period of preparation where you might not see visible results. And that's where most people quit. The third principle is developing your skills daily, not occasionally, not when you feel like it. Daily. Consistency is the key to mastery. The great basketball coach John Wooden didn't focus on winning championships. He focused on his players putting their socks on properly every single day. He knew that excellence isn't one giant leap. It's thousands of tiny steps taken consistently. Let me tell you a story about a stone cutter. He hammers away at his rock, maybe 100 times without making a dent. Then on the 101st blow, the rock splits in two. Was it the 101st blow that did it? Or was it the accumulation of all the blows that came before? Of course, it was all of them. That's how mastery works. It's not one heroic effort. It's the accumulation of daily disciplines. You know, I've studied successful people for decades now. And one thing I've noticed is that they all have daily rituals. Little things they do every day without fail. They understand that it's the small disciplines repeated over time that over time that create the big results. I often ask people, "What are you reading right now?" And it's amazing how many say, "Oh, I don't have time to read." But when I talk to the most successful people, they always have a book they're currently studying. They understand that learning is a lifelong process. They're constantly filling their minds with new ideas, new strategies, new perspectives. The fourth principle is to seek out the best mentors and teachers. If you want to become the best, learn from the best. It's as simple as that. Why would you learn golf from someone who shoots 100 when you could learn from someone who shoots 70? Why would you learn business from someone struggling to make ends meet when you could learn from someone who's built an empire? Now you might be thinking, "But Jim, I don't have access to these top people." And I understand that. But in today's world, you have unprecedented access to the thoughts and teachings of the very best through books, audio programs, videos, online courses. There's simply no excuse for not learning from the best. I remember when I was just starting out, I couldn't afford to hire the top business consultants. But I could afford their books. For the price of a decent meal, I could access decades of their wisdom and experience. What a bargain. The information that can transform your life is available for the price of a few cups of coffee. The question is, are you investing? The fifth principle is understanding the power of your environment. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. The people you spend the most time with shape who you become. Their habits, their mindsets, their expectations all rub off on you. If you want to be the best, you need to surround yourself with people who pull you up, not push you down. People who challenge you, not coddle you. People who expect more from you than you sometimes expect from yourself. I've seen so many promising careers and lives derailed because someone was in the wrong environment. The good news is you can change your environment. You can choose who you spend time with. You can join mastermind groups, professional associations, church groups, or any community that elevates your thinking and challenges you to grow. You know, there's a concept called the slight edge. It's the idea that small, seemingly insignificant actions, when performed consistently over time, create massive results. Let me give you an example. If you read just 10 pages of a good book every day, that's about 3,650 pages per year. That's roughly 12 good books. Do that for 5 years and you've read 60 books. Do you think reading 60 carefully selected books in your field would make a difference in your expertise? Of course it would. The sixth principle is mastering your mindset. Your mind is the battleground where the war for your potential is fought every day. What you tell yourself matters. The questions you ask yourself matter. The beliefs you hold about what's possible for you matter. Most people live with limiting beliefs they're not even aware of. I'm not good with numbers. I'm too old to start something new. I'm just not creative. These beliefs act like invisible prison walls, keeping you contained, keeping you from becoming the best. I want you to try something. Complete this sentence, I am. What words did you use? Were they empowering or limiting? Your self-identity shapes everything you do. If you believe you're the kind of person who gives up when things get tough, guess what you'll do when things get tough? You'll give up. But if you believe you're the kind of person who persists until you find a solution, that's exactly what you'll do. The good news is that your beliefs are not fixed. They can be changed. They can be upgraded. You can choose more empowering beliefs that serve your goal of becoming the best. One powerful way to change your beliefs is to act as if you already are the person you want to become. Want to be confident? Act confident. Want to be disciplined? Act disciplined. Your actions can drive your beliefs just as much as your beliefs drive your actions. The seventh principle is understanding the power of incremental improvement. Most people overestimate what they can accomplish in a day and underestimate what they can accomplish in a year. If you improve just 1% every day, at the end of a year, you'll be 37 times better, not 365% better. That's the power of compound growth. Imagine you're a salesperson and you make 10 calls a day. What if you decided to make just one more call each day? That's just a 10% increase. Over a year, that's 250 extra calls. If your closing rate is 10%, that's 25 additional sales you wouldn't have had otherwise. Small hinges swing big doors. The eighth principle is embracing failure as a teacher, not an undertaker. Show me someone who's the best at what they do, and I'll show you someone who's failed more times than the average person has even tried. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of success. Every time you fail, you learn, you refine your approach, you get better. The only true failure is giving up or not trying in the first place. I often say, don't wish it were easier were better. Embrace the challenges. They're making you stronger. They're preparing you for the level of success you're seeking. I remember talking to a young entrepreneur who was frustrated because his first business venture had failed. I asked him, what did you learn? He started listing off all the valuable lessons he'd gained. I said, so it wasn't a failure then, was it? It was an education. And what's the value of that education? He thought for a moment and said, priceless. The ninth principle is developing extraordinary energy management. Becoming the best at anything requires energy, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual energy. You need to manage these energy sources wisely. Physical energy comes from how you eat, how you move, how you rest. Mental energy comes from focusing on what matters and eliminating distractions. Emotional energy comes from positive relationships and managing stress. Spiritual energy comes from living in alignment with your deepest values and purpose. Most people neglect at least one of these areas, and it costs them dearly in their pursuit of excellence. You can't become the best with depleted energy. It's like trying to drive across the country on a quarter tank of gas. You need to be fully fueled. I once coached a business executive who was brilliant but constantly exhausted. His results were good, but nowhere near what they could have been. When we examined his lifestyle, it was obvious why. He was sleeping 5 hours a night, eating fast food, never exercising, and working 7 days a week. I told him, "You're like a race car with a lawnmower engine." We restructured his entire approach to energy management, and within 6 months, his results doubled. Not because he worked more hours, but because the hours he worked were at a much higher level of performance. The 10th principle is knowing your why. Your motivation matters. If your why is strong enough, the how will take care of itself. I've seen people with tremendous talent and opportunity fail because their why was weak. And I've seen people with average abilities and limited opportunities succeed beyond all expectations because their why was powerful. Your why is the emotional fuel that keeps you going when things get tough. And make no mistake, things will get tough. There will be obstacles, setbacks, doubts, and failures on your path to becoming the best. Without a strong why, you'll give up when these challenges arise. So ask yourself, why do you want to become the best? Is it for recognition, financial reward, personal satisfaction, to make a difference in the lives of others? There's no right or wrong answer, but you need to know your answer, and it needs to be compelling enough to pull you through the inevitable difficult times. I remember working with a gentleman who wanted to build a successful business. When I asked him why, he initially said, "To make a lot of money." I pushed him further. "Why do you want to make a lot of money?" He thought for a moment and said, "So I can provide security for my family and opportunities for my children that I never had." Now that's a why with emotional power. That's the kind of motivation that gets you out of bed at 5 a.m. to work on your business before your day job. The 11th principle is developing systems, not just setting goals. Goals are important. They give you direction. But systems are what deliver results consistently. A goal is scoring 50 points in a basketball game. A system is the daily practice routine that improves your shooting percentage. Most people focus too much on the goal and not enough on the system that will get them there. They get excited about the destination but neglect the path. The best in any field have excellent systems for practice, for performance, for recovery, for learning, for everything that matters to their success. I've worked with countless entrepreneurs over the years. The ones who succeed long-term aren't just visionaries with big goals. They're the ones who develop robust systems for marketing, sales, delivery, customer service, finance, and so on. They understand that while passion might start a business, it's systems that build it. The 12th principle is scheduling your priorities rather than prioritizing your schedule. Most people look at their calendar and try to squeeze in their important activities around existing commitments. The best do the opposite. They decide what's most important to their success and schedule those activities first, then work everything else around them. If becoming the best in your field requires 4 hours of deliberate practice daily, that goes on the calendar first. Not after you've scheduled everything else. Not if you have time left over first. This principle separates the elite from the average more than almost any other. Average performers work on their priorities when they can. The best work on their priorities no matter what. They don't find time, they make time. I remember coaching a woman who wanted to write a book, but claimed she didn't have time. When we analyzed her schedule, she was spending 2 hours a day watching television. I asked her, "What's more important to you, writing this book or watching TV?" She immediately said the book. I said, "Then why does your schedule reflect the opposite priority?" That was a wake-up call for her. Within 6 months, she had completed the first draft of her manuscript simply by realigning her schedule with her true priorities. The 13th principle is understanding the difference between activity and productivity. Being busy isn't the same as being effective. Many people mistake motion for progress. They're like the person who runs up and down a ladder very quickly but never goes anywhere. The best in any field focus ruthlessly on the vital few activities that drive the majority of their results. They understand the Pareto principle that roughly 20% of your efforts produce 80% of your results. They identify the critical 20% and concentrate their time and energy there. I've consulted with sales teams where one salesperson was making 3 times as many calls as another but generating half the revenue. Why? Because they were focusing on activity rather than productivity. The top performer had identified the most promising prospects and was spending more time with each one, whereas the busy salesperson was spreading themselves too thin across low potential leads. The 14th principle is developing grit and perseverance. Angela Duckworth's research has shown that grit, passion, and perseverance for long-term goals is a better predictor of success than talent or intelligence. The path to becoming the best at anything is never a straight line. There will be obstacles, setbacks, plateaus, and failures. Your ability to push through these challenges separates the elite from the average. I like to think of perseverance as the great filter. Many people have talent, intelligence, and opportunity, but relatively few have the perseverance to push through difficulty. When you develop this quality, you automatically move ahead of the majority of your competitors. Let me tell you about two entrepreneurs I mentored early in their careers. They had similar backgrounds, similar ideas, similar resources. One built a $100 million company. The other's business failed within 2 years. The difference: the first entrepreneur faced the same problems as the second but refused to quit. When he hit obstacles, he found a way around, over, or through them. The second entrepreneur gave up when the inevitable challenges arose. The 15th principle is continuous self-reflection and adjustment. The best in any field are constantly evaluating their performance and making adjustments. They don't wait for an annual review or external feedback. They're their own harshest critics. After every significant activity or milestone, they ask themselves, what went well? What could have been better? What will I do differently next time? This constant cycle of action, reflection, and adjustment accelerates their growth exponentially. I've seen this principle at work in elite athletes, top business leaders, and exceptional performers in every field. They don't just practice, they practice deliberately. They don't just work, they work strategically. They're always looking for the edge, the insight, the adjustment that can take them to the next level. The 16th principle is becoming a lifelong student of your craft. The best never stop learning. They're curious, humble, and always seeking new knowledge and skills. They read books, attend seminars, find mentors, study competitors, and constantly expose themselves to new ideas. In today's rapidly changing world, what got you here that'll get you there? The skills and knowledge that brought you success in the past may not be sufficient for success in the future. Those who stop learning stop growing, and those who stop growing start declining. I remember talking with a successful businessman who told me, Jim, I read at least one book a week related to my industry or to leadership. I asked him how long he had been doing this. 25 years, he replied. I did the quick math, that's over 1,300 books. Is it any wonder he was at the top of his field? The 17th principle is teaching others what you know. This might seem counterintuitive. Why would you help potential competitors? But the reality is that teaching deepens your own understanding. When you have to explain a concept to someone else, you discover the gaps in your own knowledge. You're forced to clarify your thinking. Additionally, teaching creates a community of practice around you. It attracts like-minded individuals who can become collaborators, partners, or valuable members of your network. Some of the best in their fields are also the most generous with their knowledge. I've noticed this phenomenon throughout my career. The truly exceptional people aren't hoarding their knowledge, they're sharing it. They understand that knowledge isn't a finite resource that diminishes when shared. It's the opposite, it grows. The 18th principle is focusing on your strengths rather than trying to eliminate all weaknesses. This doesn't mean ignoring your weaknesses entirely, especially if they're holding you back. But it does mean investing the majority of your development time in areas where you already show some natural ability. If you have a talent for analysis but struggle with public speaking, you'll make faster progress toward becoming the best by developing your analytical skills to an extraordinary level rather than trying to become a world-class speaker. Manage your weaknesses but maximize your strengths. I've counseled countless individuals who were frustrated because they weren't making progress. In many cases, they were focusing all their effort on improving areas of natural weakness instead of leveraging and developing their natural strengths. When they shifted their focus, their progress accelerated dramatically. The 19th principle is becoming comfortable with discomfort. Growth happens at the edge of your comfort zone. If you're never uncomfortable, you're never growing. The best in any field regularly push themselves into discomfort, not because they enjoy it, but because they know that's where breakthrough performance is found. Whether it's the physical discomfort of an athlete pushing their limits, the emotional discomfort of a leader making tough decisions, or the mental discomfort of learning complex new skills. Becoming the best requires embracing discomfort as a sign of progress, not a signal to retreat. I often tell the story of a young man who approached me after a seminar. He said, Mr. Rohn, I really want to be successful, but I'm afraid of failing. I asked him, are you more afraid of failing or of never becoming the person you could be? That question changed his perspective. He realized that the discomfort of potential failure was less painful than the certainty of unfulfilled potential. The 20th principle is developing extraordinary communication skills. No matter what field you're in, your ability to communicate effectively, to articulate ideas, to listen deeply, to persuade others, to provide clear feedback will significantly impact your success. The best leaders, teachers, coaches, salespeople, doctors, lawyers, and professionals in virtually every field are skilled communicators. They know how to tailor their message to their audience. They know when to speak and when to listen. They know how to make complex ideas accessible without oversimplifying. I've observed that as people rise to the top of their fields, the importance of communication skills increases exponentially. Technical skills might get you in the door, but communication skills take you to the penthouse. The 21st principle is developing resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from setbacks, adapt to change, and keep going in the face of adversity. It's a quality that distinguishes the best from the rest, because the path to excellence is inevitably marked with failures and disappointments. Resilience isn't something you're born with or without. It's a skill that can be developed through practice and perspective. It comes from understanding that setbacks are temporary, that they don't define you, and that they often contain valuable lessons. I remember working with an executive who had been passed over for promotion. He was devastated in considering leaving the company. I asked him, "What can you learn from this experience?" After reflection, he identified several areas where he could improve. He stayed with the company, worked on those areas, and 18 months later, not only got the promotion he had wanted, but was moved into an even higher position because of the growth he had demonstrated. The 22nd principle is seeking and using feedback effectively. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. Without accurate feedback, you can't correct your course or improve your performance. The best in any field actively seek feedback, even when it's uncomfortable to hear. But seeking feedback is only half the equation. Using it effectively is equally important. This doesn't mean implementing every suggestion you receive. It means considering feedback thoughtfully, determining what's valid and valuable, and then incorporating those insights into your development plan. I've noticed that average performers tend to get defensive when receiving constructive criticism, while top performers tend to get curious. They ask questions, they probe for specifics, they want to understand exactly what they can do to improve. The 23rd principle is developing strategic patience. This is different from passive waiting. Strategic patience is active and intentional. It's understanding that some processes can't be rushed. That mastery takes time, that some results only come after persistent effort over an extended period. Our culture celebrates overnight success, but the reality is that most overnight successes were years or decades in the making. The best understand this and aren't discouraged by the gap between their current performance and their ultimate goal. They trust the process. They focus on daily progress, not daily perfection. I often use the analogy of planting seeds. You can't harvest tomorrow what you plant today. There's a natural gestation period that can't be rushed. The same is true for developing expertise. There are no shortcuts to mastery. The 24th principle is eliminating distractions and focusing on what truly matters. In today's world, distractions are everywhere. Social media, email, text messages, endless entertainment options, all competing for your attention. The best understand that attention is their most valuable resource, and they guard it accordingly. They create environments that support focused work. They establish boundaries around their time. They're willing to miss out on what's merely good to focus on what's truly great. They understand that the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. I remember consulting with a writer who was struggling to finish his book. When we analyzed how he was spending his time, we discovered that he was checking email and social media dozens of times throughout his writing sessions. Each interruption was breaking his flow and costing him precious creative energy. Once he implemented strict boundaries around these distractions, his productivity tripled. The 25th principle is investing in recovery. The path to becoming the best isn't about working 24/7. It's about working intensely and then recovering fully. This rhythm of stress and recovery is what drives growth, whether physical, mental, or emotional. The best understand that recovery isn't a waste of time. It's an essential part of the growth process. They sleep well, they take breaks, they have hobbies and interests outside their primary focus area. They understand that the quality of their work time is more important than the quantity. I've seen so many promising careers derailed by burnout. People who pushed and pushed without adequate recovery until they simply couldn't push anymore. Don't make that mistake. Work hard, but recover harder. The 26th principle is developing extraordinary focus. In a world of endless options and opportunities, the ability to focus is increasingly rare and increasingly valuable. The best don't try to do everything. They identify what truly matters and direct their energy there. This means saying no to good opportunities so you can say yes to great ones. It means occasionally disappointing others to stay true to your priorities. It means having the courage to pursue depth in a culture that often celebrates breadth. I remember a conversation with a successful entrepreneur who told me his secret: I say no to almost everything. At first I thought he was exaggerating, but as he explained his philosophy, I understood. By saying no to almost everything, he was able to say an emphatic yes to the few things that truly aligned with his goals and values. The 27th principle is building relationships strategically. No one becomes the best in isolation. You need mentors, peers, partners, team members, clients, and supporters. The best understand this and invest in building strong, mutually beneficial relationships. This isn't about manipulating people for personal gain. It's about creating genuine connections with others who can help you grow and whom you can help in return. It's about surrounding yourself with people who elevate your thinking, challenge your assumptions, and support your goals. I've observed that the most successful people are often the ones with the strongest networks. Not necessarily the largest networks, but the strongest, filled with deep, trust-based relationships that have been nurtured over time. The 28th principle is developing exceptional self-awareness. You can't improve what you don't understand. The best have a clear picture of their strengths, weaknesses, values, beliefs, emotional patterns, and blind spots. This self-awareness allows them to leverage their strengths, manage their weaknesses, and make decisions that align with their values. Developing self-awareness requires honest reflection and often feedback from others. It means being willing to look at uncomfortable truths about yourself. But this discomfort pales in comparison to the pain of trying to become the best without understanding your starting point. I've worked with many talented individuals who were held back not by lack of ability, but by lack of self-awareness. Once they gained clarity about themselves, their progress accelerated dramatically. The 29th principle is becoming disciplined about your physical health. Your body is the vehicle that carries your talent. If that vehicle breaks down, it doesn't matter how talented you are, you won't be able to express that talent fully. The best understand this connection between physical well-being and peak performance. They prioritize sleep, nutrition, exercise, and stress management. They recognize that physical energy is the foundation of all other types of energy: mental, emotional, and spiritual. I remember a brilliant executive who was constantly exhausted and increasingly ineffective. When I suggested he focus on his physical health, he dismissed the idea as too basic. I need advanced strategies, he said, but after months of declining performance, he finally took my advice. Within weeks of improving his sleep, nutrition, and exercise habits, his energy, creativity, and effectiveness returned. Sometimes the most basic principles are the most powerful. The 30th principle is developing emotional intelligence. In almost any field, your ability to understand and manage your own emotions and to empathize with others was crucial to peak performance. Technical skills might get you in the door, but emotional intelligence often determines how far you'll go. This is particularly true in fields that involve leading others, serving clients, or working in teams, which is virtually every field. The best have learned to stay calm under pressure, to motivate themselves through setbacks, to read social cues accurately, and to build rapport with diverse individuals. I've seen many careers stall because of low emotional intelligence. People who were technically brilliant but couldn't collaborate effectively, manage conflict, or inspire others. Don't let that happen to you. Your emotional skills deserve as much attention as your technical ones. The 31st principle is aligning your efforts with your natural chronotype. Some people are morning larks, some are night owls, and others are somewhere in between. The best understand their natural energy patterns and schedule their most important work during their peak periods. If you're naturally alert and creative in the morning, that's when you should tackle your most challenging tasks. If your energy peaks in the afternoon or evening, adjust your schedule accordingly. Working with your biology rather than against it can dramatically increase your effectiveness. I remember coaching a writer who was struggling to make progress on her book. She was trying to write in the morning because she'd read that successful authors often write first thing. But she was a natural night owl and found her creativity peaked in the evening. Once she shifted her writing sessions to align with her natural rhythm, her productivity soared. The 32nd principle is understanding the power of your identity. How you see yourself, your self-identity powerfully influences your behavior. If you identify as someone who gives up when things get tough, you'll likely give up when things get tough. If you identify as someone who finds a way no matter what, you'll likely persist until you succeed. The best are intentional about crafting empowering identities. They don't let past failures or setbacks define them. They're constantly evolving their self-image to support their goals. I've worked with many individuals who were held back not by lack of skill or opportunity, but by limiting identities. They saw themselves as not creative or bad with numbers or not leadership material. These self-definitions became self-fulfilling prophecies. But when they began to shift these identities, everything changed. The 33rd principle is becoming financially literate. No matter what field you're in, understanding money, how to earn it, manage it, invest it, and protect it will impact your journey to becoming the best. Financial stress can distract you from your primary focus, while financial security can give you the freedom to take risks and invest in your development. The best don't leave their financial education to chance. They study personal finance. They build multiple income streams. They lie below their means. They invest for the long term. They understand that financial freedom isn't about having everything you want. It's about having control over your own time. I remember a talented musician who was constantly stressed about money. This stress drained her creative energy and limited her ability to take advantage of growth opportunities. Once she developed some basic financial literacy and stability, her artistic output flourished. She wasn't any more talented, but she was able to express that talent more fully. In conclusion, becoming the best at anything isn't a mystery. It's not reserved for the specially gifted or the extraordinarily lucky. It's available to anyone willing to apply these principles consistently over time. Will it be easy? No. Will it be worth it? Absolutely, because the rewards of becoming the best extend far beyond external recognition or material success. There's an inner satisfaction that comes from knowing you've developed your potential, that you've become what you were capable of becoming. So I challenge you today, choose something that matters to you, something you're passionate about, something that leverages your natural strengths, and commit to becoming the best. Not for the applause, not for the trophy, not even for the paycheck, though those things might come, but for the person you'll become in the process. Remember what I often say, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Because if you become more valuable, everything else becomes more valuable to you. The journey to becoming the best starts with a decision, your decision. No one else can make it for you. No one else can walk the path for you, but many have walked it before you, leaving clues along the way. Follow those clues, apply these principles, and watch as you transcend what you once thought was possible. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe in you. I believe in your potential. Now it's time for you to believe in yourself. Because becoming the best isn't just something you do, it's someone you become. Thank you.